Stars stretched endless, not alone anymore. Damn good feeling. The Nova Verge space station hung suspended between twin red stars, their glow bathing everything in a burnt orange haze. Jace Calder trudged through the floating market, his worn boots clanking against the metal deck. The air stung with the sharp tang of ozone and the alien bite of Khyvari spices. Engines growled in the distance, a low rumble blending with the robotic hawking of vendors. He paused, gray eyes scanning the hovering stalls. Cables hummed with magnetic fields, holding them aloft. Neon lights, green and purple, flickered, casting glows on jars of glowing critters and piles of scrap tech. Jace smirked, shoving a hand into the pocket of his battered leather jacket. "Still smells like a junkyard," he muttered, voice rough as gravel. 300 years ago, Earth cooked in a solar flare's wrath. Humanity clung to life on patched-up stations like Nova Verge, their old tech, fusion cores, nuclear drives, marked by the Khyvari as relics. Jace was a grease-stained engineer aboard the Stellar Drift, a rust bucket he called home. He'd come here for cheap parts, anything to keep the ship's engines from choking out. A Khyvari trader swaggered up, skin shimmering pale green under the lights. Red eyes glared through narrow slits. "Human, huh? This core's 3 credits." He dangled a scorched fusion piece, its surface pocked with burn marks. Jace snorted, pointing at it. 3? That's worth 2 if it's lucky. The trader shrugged, voice rasping like a busted thruster. "You're broke, human. Pay or scram." Jace inhaled, the ozone searing his nose. He liked the chaos of Nova Verge. It was the only place humans and Khyvari crossed paths, even if it was mostly sneers and side-eyes. The Khyvari, masters of biotech, had clawed their way out of slavery under the ancient Vroth Empire. They'd turned their bodies into living weapons, and now they ruled, dismissing humans as echoes of a dead world. He moved on, eyes catching a strange stall. A Khyvari woman stood there, skin glowing like jade, silver hair shimmering like a nebula. Violet eyes stared into the distance, ignoring him. She wore a thin silk cloak, a nano device gleaming on her wrist, the Soulmark, something Jace had only heard rumors about. He frowned. "Fancy tech like that costs a fortune, huh?" He edged closer, aiming to haggle for an old sensor. The crowd jostled, shouts echoing from afar. A Khyvari vendor bellowed, "Fresh stock, who's bidding higher?" Jace slipped through, clutching his fusion core. Then someone crashed into him. He stumbled, the core clattering to the deck. Metal rang out, sharp and loud. He looked up, ready to curse, but froze mid-breath. It was the silver-haired Khyvari woman. Lirien Khyra, though he didn't know her name yet. Her violet eyes widened, locking onto him. The soul mark on her wrist flared red, bright as a flare. A pulse of light swept over Jace, quick as lightning. A faint hum buzzed from the device, then silenced. "What the hell?" Jace scrambled up, voice cracking slightly. Lirien touched the soul mark, lips trembling. "It chose you." The resonance. The crowd fell quiet. Vendorbot stopped mid-pitch. Then whispers erupted like static. "A human? No way," someone shouted. Jace's heart pounded. He didn't get it. "Chose me? For what?" Lirien stared, voice dropping low. "The soul mark doesn't err. It scanned your brainwaves, your DNA. You're my destiny." Heavy boots slammed the deck from a distance. A towering figure approached, fast. Jace turned, eyes narrowing. Someone was coming, and they didn't look friendly. Steel boots slammed the deck of Nova Verge's floating market, each step ringing like a hammer strike. Jace Calder spun around, gray eyes narrowing under the flickering neon glow. The Khyvari crowd parted, revealing a hulking figure. Khyra stormed forward, his dark green skin gleaming under the lights. Red eyes souped up with biotech mods, locked onto Jace, cold as a laser sight. He stopped a few paces away, breath hissing like a busted engine. "Human," Torin snarled, claws glinting in the dim. You dare taint my sister's Soulmark? Jace squared up, gripping the battered fusion core tight. His heart thumped hard. I didn't do squat. Ask that gizmo on her wrist. Lirien Khyra stepped forward, silver hair spilling over her face. Her voice trembled but held steel. Tauren, stop it. The Soulmark chose him. It's science, not a whim. Tauren wheeled on her, red eyes slitting narrow. Science? A filthy human? This insults the Vax clan. The crowd buzzed louder. Shouts erupted from the back. No way a human's worthy. One Khyvari barked, but a few whispered, curious. The Soulmark never screws up. Jace smirked, voice rough as sandpaper. I didn't sign up for your destiny crap, so what now? Tauren snapped his arm up, quick as a whip. A hologram flared from his wrist, projecting a busted Khyvari biocore, tangled nanowires pulsing. Faint red, he chucked it to the deck at Jace's feet. Metal clanged sharp and loud. Fix it, Tauren growled, voice hard as hull plating. Right here. Prove you're not Earth's trash. Jace crouched, snagging the biocore. It felt heavy, warm in his hands. He didn't know jack about Khyvari nanotech. Brainwaves, DNA, that was their game, not his. But Tauren's smug glare lit a fire in his gut. He dug into his jacket, pulling out a coil of copper wire and a small folding knife. Lirien edged closer, violet eyes wide with worry. Jace, watch it. You don't have to. Let me see him flop. Tauren cut in, grinning like a shark. Humans don't belong near a Soulmark. Jace ignored her, tuning out the crowd's roar. Khyvari jeered, voices drowning the market's hum. Check it out, kids' toys. He didn't flinch. Laughter bounced off him like stray bolts. Jace pried the biocore open, nanowires flickering like dying embers. He muttered to himself. Come on, Jace. Just another machine. Sweat beaded on his brow. He snipped a copper strand, threading it into the main circuit. 3 minutes ticked by, fast as a pulse drive. The crowd hushed bit by bit. Tauren stood there, arms crossed, red eyes glowing. Then the biocore whined. A faint red glow sparked, steadying. It wasn't perfect, but it hummed alive. Jace stood, tossing it at Tauren's feet. Metal rang out again. Done. What's next? The crowd exploded. Cheers clashed with boos. Dumb luck, one Khyvari yelled. But a few stares shifted, intrigued. How'd he pull that off? Tauren's jaw clenched, claws flexing hard. Think that's enough, huh? He stepped in close, breath scorching Jace's face. This is just the start. Lirien grabbed Jace's arm, yanking him back. Her whisper came fast, urgent. You just did something bigger than you know. Jace locked eyes with her, then Tauren. Pressure squeezed his chest, not fear, but fire. Good, he said, voice steady as steel. 'Cause I'm not done either. But from the market's shadows, another Khyvari figure approached. A hologram flickered on his wrist, stamped with the Vax clan's twin star sigil. Something heavy was rolling in, and it wasn't just Tauren's temper. Neon lights pulsed green and purple across Nova Verge's floating market, casting jagged shadows. Jace Calder stood still, breath fogging in the cold air. The Khyvari crowd buzzed around him, a mix of shouts and the hum of magnetic cables overhead. Lirien Khyra gripped his arm, her jade-green fingers trembling faintly. Tauren Khyra loomed nearby, arms crossed, red eyes burning holes through the haze. The patched-up biocore glowed faintly at his feet. Then steel boots marched closer, steady and sharp. A lean Khyvari broke through the throng, clad in a black silk cloak stitched with the Vax clan's twin star sigil, a red double sun in a nano-ring. A hologram flared from his wrist, spitting out a deep, crackling voice. Lirien Khyra, Jace Calder, the clan summons you. Now. Jace frowned, voice rough as gravel. Summons. I don't answer to your crew. Tauren smirked, claws glinting. Under the lights. You don't get a say, human. The Soulmark dragged you in. Lirien let go of Jace, stepping forward. Her silver hair spilled over her face, violet eyes flashing. Tauren, back off. I'll go, but he's not the one at fault. The messenger's eyes narrowed, hologram glowing brighter. The clan wants both. The Soulmark doesn't lie. Orders are set. The crowd hushed, murmurs fading. Engines growled faintly beyond the stalls. Jace felt a weight slam his chest. He glanced at Lirien, then Tauren. Fine, I'll go. But not 'cause I'm scared. Tauren tilted his head, voice cold as hull steel. You'll wish you'd bolted when you had the chance. The messenger raised a hand. A metal hatch slid open on the deck, revealing a maglift humming with energy. It whined low as it powered up. Follow me, he barked, stepping in. Jace sucked in a breath, ozone stinging his nose. He shot Lirien a look. She nodded, silver hair shifting. Tauren trailed behind, his breath hot and heavy. The lift dropped fast, twin stars fading through thick glass. Inside the Vax clan's hub, the air turned icy. Black steel walls gleamed, webbed with self-repairing nanogrids. Red biolights hung overhead, buzzing like trapped bugs. A massive, round table dominated the room. 5 Khyvari sat there, cloaked in black silk, twin star emblems glaring. Their violet eyes sliced through Jace like plasma cutters. One rose, voice deep and echoing. Lirien, your Soulmark picked a human. Explain. Lirien stepped up, brushing her Soulmark. It pulsed faintly red. I didn't choose, she said, voice shaky but firm. The tech did. It scanned his brainwaves. His DNA. He's real. Jace's heart thudded. He didn't get the Soulmark's deal. But the Council's sneers lit a spark in his gut. He spoke up, rough-edged. I didn't ask for this gig, but I'm not dodging your tests either. Tauren lunged forward, slamming a fist on the table. Steel rang out, sharp and loud. Tests? He's earth trash. Wipe the Soulmark. The lead counselor raised a hand, silencing him. His voice cut like a blade. The Soulmark's science not a game, but a human. That's unacceptable. Lirien turned to Jace, violet eyes worried. They want me to reject you. I'm not sure I can. Jace smirked, staring down the council. I don't need your approval. I'm here 'cause I damn well chose to be, the council muttered, voices drowned by the biolight's hum. The leader eyed Lirien, then Jace. You've got 1 day to ditch the Soulmark, or the trials begin. Tauren's teeth ground, red eyes flaring brighter. I'll make sure you don't see tomorrow, human. Jace held his ground, unflinching. Fire roared in his chest. Bring it, he said, voice hard as steel. But from his jacket, the old radio crackled again. A faint voice broke through, clipped short. We're still alive. The Nova Verge arena thrummed with the roar of Khyvari spectators. Twin red stars bled light through the domed glass ceiling, painting the steel floor a crimson sheen. Jace Calder stood dead center, old boots gripping the nano-mesh deck. Cold, air blasted from the vents, carrying the bite of scorched metal. Engines growled low beyond the walls, drowned by the crowd's jeers echoing off floating stands. Tauren Vax Khyra strode forward, dark green skin slick with sweat. His modded red eyes drilled into Jace unblinking. First trial, he barked, voice booming over the noise. Brains. Prove you're not Earth's garbage. Jace smirked, hands sliding into his worn leather jacket. Brains, huh? Thought. You'd stick to punching. The crowd roared with laughter. Shouts bounced from the back. He's toast. Tauren's jaw tightened, claws flexing. He snapped his arm up. A hologram flared, projecting a Khyvari biocore, nanowires tangled like a dying star, pulsing faint red. Fix it, Tauren snarled, hurling it to the deck. Metal clanged loud against the mesh. 5 minutes, fail, and you're dead. Jace dropped to one knee, snagging the core. It weighed heavy, heat seeping into his palms. He didn't know squat about Khyvari nanotech. Brainwaves DNA. That was alien turf, not his. But Tauren's smug glare lit a fuse in his chest. He dug into his jacket, pulling out copper wire and a folding knife. Lirien Vax Khyra lingered at the ring's edge, violet eyes tight with worry. Jace, careful, she said, voice low and urgent. This isn't like the market. Got it. Jace shot back, rough as gravel. But I don't quit. The Khyvari mob jeered louder. Look at that. Human junk. Their shouts swallowed the arena's hum. Jace tuned them out, prying the biocore open. Nano wires flickered, a mess of fading red. He muttered under his breath. Come on, Jace. Just a machine. 3 minutes burned away. Sweat trickled down his face. He snipped, copper threading it into the core's guts. His fingers shook, but stayed steady. The hologram overhead ticked down. 2 minutes left. Torin stood rigid, arms crossed, red eyes blazing. Time's up, human. Jace didn't look up. He twisted a nano node, hearing a faint whine. The crowd's noise faded. Then the core flared red, bright and steady, not flawless, but alive. He stood, chucking it at Torin's feet. Metal rang out again. Done. What's next? The stands erupted. Cheers clashed with boos. Pure luck, one Khyvari hollered. But a few stares shifted, stunned. How'd he manage that? Torin's teeth ground, stepping close. His breath scorched Jace's face. Think you're clever? He flicked his wrist, hologram switching to a zero-grav obstacle course rigged with traps. Next trial's gonna crush you. Lirien darted forward, grabbing Jace's arm. You just put a target on your back, she whispered, voice trembling. The clan's watching. Jace met her gaze, then Torin's. Fire roared in his gut. Good, 'cause I'm watching them too. A deep voice cut through from the stands. A figure in black silk, twin star sigil blazing, stood tall. Jace Calder passes the first trial, it droned over biospeakers. But the clan's not. Convinced, Torin sneered, claws gleaming. You scrape by today, human. Tomorrow I'll rip you apart. Jace held his ground, sucking in the burnt metal air. Try it, he said, voice hard as hull plating. But from his jacket, the old radio crackled again. A shaky voice broke through, louder now. Nova Verge. We need help. Static swallowed it. Jace froze. Who was calling from the void? The Nova Verge arena shook under the Khyvari crowd's thunderous roars. Red light from twin stars poured through the glass dome, dancing across the nano-mesh floor. Jace Calder stood in the ring, breath fogging the icy air. Magnetic hums whined steady from the walls. Before him stretched a zero-gravity gauntlet, floating steel platforms rigged with red laser grids and glowing biomines. Torin Vax Khyra swaggered up, muscles bulging under biotech grafts. His red eyes glared at Jace, dripping contempt. Second trial, he bellowed, voice punching through the noise. Strength, cross it or get shredded. Jace smirked, hands jammed in his battered leather jacket. Beat your death trap, piece of cake. The crowd howled with laughter. Jeers rang out from the stands. He's done for. Torin raised a hand. A hologram flared, showing the course in brutal detail, 100-meter maze of doom. He grinned, sharp and mean. Go, human. Jace sucked in a breath, the air thick with scorched metal. He wasn't fast like Torin. Khyvari biotech gave them jacked muscles, razor reflexes, but Jace had brains. He fished a homemade gizmo from his pocket, a clunky magnetic controller, scrapped together from earth junk. Lirien Vax Khyra hovered at the ring's edge, silver hair wild. Jace, don't push it, she warned, voice tight with fear. This thing kills. Got it, Jace shot back, rough as gravel. But I don't fall. Torin launched onto the first platform, quick as a bolt. Steel boots slammed down, ringing loud. He vaulted over a laser grid, dodging a biomine like it was nothing. The crowd roared, cheers swallowing the mine's hum. Jace bolted after him slower. His foot slipped on the first platform. A laser grid slashed past, grazing his boot. He tumbled, hands clawing the edge. Khyvari jeers erupted. Pathetic. He gritted his teeth, hauling himself up. He flipped on the mag controller. A faint pulse rippled out, tweaking the nano mesh. He aimed at the next platform where Torin had just landed. A biomine glowed, primed to blow. Jace hit the trigger. The pulse scrambled it, veering the blast. It erupted near Torin, knocking him flat. The crowd went dead quiet, then exploded. "Cheater!" one screamed, but whispers crept in. "Smart! Move!" Torin roared, scrambling up. He charged on, red eyes blazing fury. Jace pushed forward, slow but steady. He hit the third platform, firing the controller again. A laser grid blinked out, clearing his path. He rolled across the finish line, clumsy but alive. A hollow siren blared overhead. Jace collapsed, chest heaving. Torin stood paces away, teeth bared. The stands went wild, cheers crashing against boos. "A human won?" Jace grinned, locking eyes with Torin. "Done. What else you got?" Torin stomped closer, claws flashing. His breath scalded Jace's face. "Luck, that's all. The last trial ends you." Lirien rushed up, grabbing Jace's arm. "You shocked them," she whispered, voice shaky. "But the clan won't forgive." "This." Jace pulled himself up, meeting her gaze. Fire burned in his gut. "Good. I don't forgive them either." A deep voice boomed from the stands. A figure in black silk, twin star sigil glowing, stepped forward. "Jace Calder clears the second trial," it droned over biospeakers. "But the Soulmark's still in doubt." Torin sneered, red eyes flaring. "You survived today, human. Tomorrow I'll tear you to pieces." Jace sucked in the burnt metal air, standing tall. "Bring it," he said, voice hard as hull steel. But from his jacket, the old radio crackled again. A faint voice cut through, sharper now. "Nova Verge. Save us." Static killed it. A stranger slipped closer through the crowd, staring at Jace. Who was tracking him down? The Nova Verge arena pulsed under a dim red glow from the twin stars overhead. Khyvari cheers roared from floating stands, a tidal wave of noise crashing down. Jace Calder stood in the ring, boots planted on the nano-mesh floor. Cold air bit his face, laced with the sting of burnt steel. A hulking illusion rig loomed ahead, black metal gleaming, red nanowires pulsing like veins in a living beast. Torin Vax Khyra stepped up, dark green skin slick with sweat. His modded red eyes burned into Jace, vicious. "Final trial," he growled, voice rattling the deck. "Mind, face your fears, or break apart." Jace smirked, brushing his battered leather jacket. "Fears? I've outlasted worse than you know." The crowd jeered, sharp and loud. "He'll crack," one barked. Torin raised a hand. A hologram flared, detailing the rig. A Khyvari mind scanner, built to rip out your darkest memories. He grinned all teeth. "Step in, human." Jace sucked in a breath, the ozone tang hitting hard. He walked forward, hand grazing the rig. A red pulse flashed, whining shrill. The crowd hushed. Then the world dissolved around him. He was on Earth, 300 years back. The sky blazed with solar fire, red as blood. Explosions shook the ground. His family, mom, dad, little sis, ran through rubble. Jace yelled, voice raw as gravel. "Run, get out." But a particle surge flared up. They burned away in the flames, screams echoing in his skull. Jace dropped to his knees, fists pounding the scorched dirt. Pain tore through his chest. Not again. The illusion shifted. Nova Verge now, but twisted dark. Lirien stood there, violet eyes wet with tears. "You left me," she screamed, voice breaking. "You're weak," Torin charged. In, claws slashing her open. Jade-green blood splattered the deck. Jace roared, lunging to his feet. "It's not real. I don't abandon anyone." He swung at Torin's shadow, fist slicing through air. The figure dissolved, Torin's laugh ringing in his ears. The rig screeched louder. A final vision hit. Jace saw himself, old, alone on the stellar drift. The ship drifted, a wreck in black space, A voice hissed in his head, icy and sharp. Last survivor. Nobody wants you. Jace clenched his fists, jaw tight. Fire roared in his gut. That's a lie, he bellowed. I don't ditch Lirien. I don't ditch humans. The rig's whine cut off. Red light faded. Jace blinked awake, kneeling on the nano mesh. The crowd stared, dead silent. Torin stood. There, arms crossed, red eyes narrowed. You made it, but you're still soft. Lirien bolted forward, grabbing Jace's arm. You broke the illusion, she whispered, voice quaking. I saw you, shielding me. Jace hauled himself up, chest heaving. He met her eyes, then Torin's. Soft. I'm here 'cause I damn well chose it. The stands erupted, cheers, tangled with boos. A human's got guts, one Khyvari shouted. But some gazes softened, stunned. He didn't fold. Torin closed in, claws glinting. His breath scorched Jace's face. 3 trials down, but I'm not through with you. A deep voice rolled from the stands. A black silk figure, twin star sigil blazing, stepped up. Jace Calder clears the mind trial. It droned over biospeakers. But the Soulmarks still questioned. Lirien's grip tightened on Jace's arm. They're scared of you now, she murmured. And I'm scared of what I'll have to choose. Jace sucked in the cold air, standing firm. Let him be scared, he said, voice hard as hull steel. I'm not stopping. But from his jacket, the old radio crackled again. A faint voice cut through, clearer now. Nova Verge, we're close. Save. Staticated. A stranger in the crowd edged nearer, eyes locked on Jace. Were they already here? The Nova Verge arena thrummed with the Khyvari crowd's restless buzz. Twin stars bled red light through the shattered dome, tinting the nano-mesh floor crimson. Jace Calder stood in the ring, shoulders stinging from the bioblade's graze. Cold air bit his face, thick with burnt steel. Lirien Vax Khyra stayed close, her grip tight, the Soulmark on her wrist glowing a faint, defiant red. Torin Vax Khyra backed off a step, claws gleaming under biolights. His red eyes blazed with fury. You beat 3 trials, he snarled, voice shaking the deck, but I won't accept it. Jace smirked, brushing his torn jacket. Won't accept? Then do something about it. The crowd ignited. Shouts roared from the stands. Rip him apart. Torin snapped his arm up. A red flare erupted from his wrist. The bioblade, a banned Khyvari weapon, materialized, its nano edge razor sharp, feeding off the nearest Soulmark's energy. He grinned, all teeth. Die, human. Jace stumbled back, heart hammering. He had no weapon, just the mag controller in his pocket. You kidding me? He muttered, voice rough as gravel. Lirien lunged forward, silver hair whipping wild. Torin, stop, she yelled, voice cracking. This is forbidden. Torin spun on her, eyes slitting narrow. Shut it, Lirien. I'm saving the clan. He swung the blade. A red nano-streak slashed toward Jace, fast as a missile. Jace dove aside. The blade sliced the nano-mesh, shrieking loud. He hit the deck hard, hands scrabbling for grip. The crowd bellowed, cheers drowning out of biomines. Faint pop nearby. Torin charged again, blade blazing. Jace rolled, yanking out the mag controller. He hit the trigger. A weak pulse buzzed out, nudging the blade off course. It grazed his shoulder, tearing fabric. Pain seared through him. He gritted his teeth, staggering up. Lirien screamed, throwing herself between them. Enough! Her Soulmark flared bright. Red. A nanoshield snapped up, blocking the blade. The clash rang out like shattering glass. Torin reeled back, stunned. The crowd fell silent, then exploded again. She's betraying the clan, one howled. But some murmurs shifted, awed. The Soulmark's protecting him, Jace panted, staring at Lirien. Why'd you do that? She turned, violet eyes wet but fierce. Because you're worth it, she said, voice low and steady. More than tradition, Torin roared, claws flexing hard. You betrayed Vax, you're both dead. He raised the blade again, But a deep voice cut through from the stands. A figure in black silk, twin star sigil glowing, stepped forward. "Stand down, Tauren," it commanded, tone icy over biospeakers. "The bioblade's taboo. The clan will deal with this." Tauren's jaw clenched, the blade fading out. He glared at Jace, red eyes burning hotter. "You're breathing today. Human. But I'll find you." Jace straightened, shoulder throbbing. He met Lirien's gaze, then Tauren's. "Try it," he said, voice hard as hull steel. Lirien clutched his arm tighter. "They're splitting apart," she whispered, urgent. "I chose you, but it's gonna cost us." A stranger slipped closer through the crowd. Ragged clothes, no Khyvari sheen. He muttered to someone, eyes fixed on Jace. The mob didn't notice, but Jace felt a chill crawl up his spine. The old radio in his jacket crackled again. A faint voice broke through, sharper now. "Nova Verge, we're here. Help." Static. "Cut it off." Jace froze. A hand brushed his shoulder from behind. Someone was already in the arena with him. The Nova Verge arena buzzed with the Khyvari crowd's restless hum. Red light from twin stars filtered through the cracked dome, casting a hazy glow on the nano-mesh floor. Jace Calder stood in the ring, shoulder throbbing from the bioblades. "Cut." Cold air stung his face, heavy with burnt steel. Lirien Khyra stayed glued to his side, her grip fierce, Soulmark pulsing a faint red on her wrist. Tauren Khyra stepped back, claws glinting under biolights. His red eyes seared into Lirien, pure rage. "You betrayed the clan," he snarled, voice shaking the deck. "For this filthy human." Jace smirked, brushing his torn jacket. "Filthy? I'm still standing and you're still whining." Thine. Crowd erupted, shouts thundered from the stands. "Exile her," one roared. But whispers crept in, curious. The Soulmark picked him. "Really?" A figure in black silk strode down from the stands, twin star sigil blazing on his cloak. His deep voice boomed over biospeakers, cold as space. "Lirien Khyra, you turned the Soulmark against the clan. Explain." Lirien released Jace, stepping forward. Silver hair fell over her face, violet eyes gleaming with tears. "I didn't betray," she said, voice trembling but solid. "The Soulmark chose him. Science doesn't lie. I followed what's right." The counselor tilted his head, violet gaze slicing through her. "Right? A human outsider. You broke our code." Jace cut in, hand brushing his jacket. "Your code ain't mine," he said, rough as gravel. "She chose me. I didn't force her." Tauren lunged, slamming a fist on the deck. Metal rang out, sharp and loud. "Shut it, human. You die, and this ends." The counselor raised a hand, silencing him. His voice echoed, unyielding. The councils ruled. "Lirien, you're exiled. Erase the Soulmark, or leave forever." Lirien froze, violet eyes wide. She glanced at Jace, then Tauren. Her voice dropped, steady as steel. "I choose to leave. With him." The crowd went dead quiet, then exploded again. Shouts drowned the nanomesh's hum. "Traitor," one bellowed, but some stares shifted, stunned. She ditched the clan for him. Tauren's claws flexed, teeth grinding. "You'll regret this, Lirien. I'll hunt you both." Jace stepped up beside her, fire roaring in his chest. "Hunt away. I'll be waiting," he said, voice hard as hull plating. The counselor turned, cloak swishing. "Be off Nova Verge by dawn," he warned, icy. "Or the clan acts." He shot Tauren a look. "Stand down, Tauren. You've crossed enough lines." Tauren snarled, but backed off. His red eyes burned hotter, dripping hate. "This ain't over, human." Lirien tugged Jace from the ring, whispering fast. "We've gotta move." "They won't. Let this slide." Jace nodded, shoulders screaming with pain. He met her gaze, then scanned the crowd. "I don't run," he said, low and firm. "I face it." A stranger edged closer through the mob. Ragged clothes, No Khyvari sheen. He muttered into a device, eyes locked on Jace. The crowd didn't clock him, but Jace felt the hairs on his neck stand up. His old radio crackled from the jacket. A shaky voice broke through, clearer now. Nova Verge, we're here. Save. Static cut it short. Jace froze. More humans, he muttered, turning to Lirien. Out there. Lirien frowned, violet eyes worried. Humans? On Nova Verge? That's impossible. Before she finished, a blast rocked the arena's edge. Smoke billowed thick and fast. The crowd panicked, screams swallowing the engine's growl. A small ship punched through the dome, its hull stamped with a blazing red sun. Someone had breached Nova Verge, and they were gunning for Jace. Thick smoke choked the edge of Nova Verge's arena, curling up from a jagged blast hole. Explosions echoed, drowning the Khyvari crowd's screams. Jace Calder sprinted through the chaos, dragging Lirien Khyra by the hand. Red light from twin stars flickered through the haze, glinting off the nanomesh floor. Steel boots pounded behind them, too close. Tauren and his Khyvari squad were on their tail. Move it, Jace yelled, voice raw as gravel. His shoulder burned from the bioblade's cut. Lirien stumbled after him, silver hair whipping wild. Her violet eyes flashed panic. They won't let us go, she shouted, breathless but fierce. A small ship punched through the dome's wreckage, its hull stamped with a blazing red sun. It spat flares, scattering the crowd further. Jace glanced back, heart slamming his ribs. Someone's helping us. But why? They tore through the floating market, dodging snapped cables and toppled stalls. A biocannon whined sharp. A green bolt slammed the deck near Jace, melting steel to slag. He stumbled, yanking Lirien down with him. Tauren emerged from the smoke, dark green skin slick with sweat. His red eyes blazed. Where you running, human? He roared, raising a hand. His squad charged in, nano-weapons glowing hot. Jace scrambled up, digging into his jacket. He flipped on the mag controller. A weak pulse buzzed out, rattling the nano-mesh. A cable snapped free, crashing down to block Tauren's path. The Khyvari snarled, shredding it with his claws. Go! Jace hauled Lirien toward the docks. The stellar drift waited there. A patched-up relic, its hull scarred and pitted. The engines coughed alive as they leaped aboard. They hit the cockpit. Jace slammed his fist on the controls, fingers shaking from pain. Fire it up, he barked. Lirien hit the switches, violet eyes darting across screens. The ship whined, lurching off the dock. A biocannon bolt struck again. The blast rocked the tail, shaking the deck hard. Jace hit the floor, shoulders screaming. He gritted his teeth, crawling to the engine bay. We need more juice. Lirien followed, voice tight. Tauren'll blast us apart. Do something. Jace pried open the ancient Earth reactor. A nuclear beast, patched with copper wire and rusting pipes. He muttered to himself, "Hang on, Jace, just a machine." His left hand trembled, numb from old wounds. He worked with his right, splicing a broken circuit. Tauren's squad filled the screens. Their ship closed in, cannons blazing green. Another bolt grazed the stellar drift, rocking it sideways. Lirien yelled, "We're not gonna hold." Jace slammed the last switch. The reactor roared, shaking the ship to its bones. A magnetic surge erupted, fierce as a tidal wave. It scrambled Khyvari sensors, sending Tauren's ship spinning wild. The stellar drift shot forward, breaking free of Nova Verge's grip. Jace slumped against the wall, chest heaving. Blood seeped through his torn jacket. Done. For now. Lirien knelt beside him, jade-green hand brushing his shoulder. "You're hurt bad," she said, voice soft with worry. "But we're out." Jace met her gaze, smirking faintly. "Out? Not yet. Tauren's not the quitting type." The old radio in his jacket crackled alive. A shaky voice cut through, clearer now. "Nova Verge, we saw your ship. Save." Static clipped it short. A blip flashed on the screen. A small craft with a red sun sigil, closing in fast. Lirien frowned, violet eyes wide. More humans? Who are they? Jace sucked in the oil-thick air, fire flickering in his gut. No clue, but they're tracking me, and I want answers. But from the void, a second blip pulsed on radar. Torrens. Khyvari ship, back online, charging harder than ever. The stellar drift hurtled through deep space, its engines growling low in the cockpit. Red light from Nova Verge's twin stars faded behind, swallowed by a sea of glittering black. Jace Calder slumped against the wall, shoulder throbbing from the bioblades cut. Oil and rust stung the air, mingling with the faint whine of the control panel. Lirien Vax Khyra knelt beside him, jade-green hand hovering over his wound. "You need to rest," she said, voice soft but edged with worry. Her violet eyes traced his face. Jace smirked, voice rough as gravel. "Rest? With Torn on our ass? Fat chance." The radar blinked red. A Khyvari ship, small, sleek, stamped with the Vax sigil, closed in fast. Torren wasn't letting up. Lirien stood, silver hair spilling over her shoulders. "He's gaining," she warned, tense. "We can't outrun him." Jace hauled himself up with his good arm, the left numb and shaky. "He wants a fight? I'll give him one." Before he could hit the controls, the old radio in his jacket crackled alive. A shaky voice broke through, clearer than ever. "Nova Verge, we see your ship. Close. Save." Static clipped it off. A blip flashed on the screen, a small craft with a red sun sigil not far off. Lirien's eyes widened, violet and sharp. "More humans? Out here? That's impossible." Jay stared at the screen, heart pounding. "They made it," he muttered. "Like me." He punched the radio's mic, voice hard as steel. "This is Stellar Drift. Anyone hear me?" Silence, stretched. Then a reply rasped through. "Stellar Drift. This is Red Dawn. Earth refugees. We need help." Jace froze, glancing at Lirien. "Refugees. There's more of us out there." Fire sparked in his chest. Lirien brushed the screen, voice dropping low. "If they're real, you're not alone anymore. But why you?" Radar pinged again. "Torrens?" Ship loomed closer, biocannons glowing green. Jace slammed the controls jaw tight. "No time to guess. Gotta reach them before he does." He kicked the auxiliary thrusters online. The stellar drift roared, lurching toward the blip. Lirien dropped into the co-pilot seat, flicking on the ship's weak nanoshield. "We won't last long," she said, eyes tight with fear. The red Dawn swam into view, a tiny battered rig, hull scarred from old fights. The red sun sigil flickered on its side. A voice crackled over the radio. "Stellar Drift, we see you." "Don't let the Khyvari snag us." Jace gripped the yoke, shoulders screaming. "Nobody's snagging anyone today," he growled, voice raw. A biocannon bolt streaked from behind. The blast rocked the ship, static fuzzing the screens. Lirien yelped. "Torren, he's targeting both of us." Jace spun, catching Torren's ship on the rear cam. It charged in, fast and mean. Torren's face flared up on comms, red eyes blazing. "Run out of tricks, human," he snarled, voice like a busted thruster. "I'll shred you and those rats." Lirien clutched Jace's arm, nails digging in. "He won't stop. We've got to do something." Jace met her gaze, then the red dawn's blip. Fire roared in his gut. "I don't ditch them, ever." He hit the radio again. "Red Dawn, hold tight, I'm drawing him off." A frantic voice shot back. "Thanks, but watch yourself." The stellar drift banked hard, swinging toward Torrens. "Ship." Lirien gaped, violet eyes wide. "You lost your damn mind?" Jace grinned, shoving the throttle full tilt. "Maybe. But I'm not letting anyone die for me." A new blip pulsed on radar, cutting through the dark. Bigger, unmarked. No. Khyvari sigil. No human mark. It barreled toward them, outpacing Torren. Who was crashing this fight on the edge of life and death? The stellar drift drifted through the endless black engines, rumbling low in the cockpit. Stars glittered faint through the scratched viewport, casting a dim glow on the burned-out controls. Jace Calder gripped the yoke, shoulder aching from the bio-blade's cut. Rust and oil hung thick in the air, mingling with the soft hum of the radar. Lirien Khyra sat beside him, violet eyes scanning the screens, jade-green hand clenched tight on the armrest. "We shook Torin off," Jace said, voice rough as gravel. "But that other ship, who the hell's that?" Lirien frowned, silver hair catching the starlight. "Not Khyvari," she murmured, tense. "No Vax sigil." The radar chirped. The red dawn closed in. A small, beat-up rig, its hull scarred and pocked from old battles. A red sun sigil flickered on its flank. A shaky voice crackled over the eye. "Radio, raw but clear. Stellar drift, we're docking. Thanks for pulling that bastard off us." Jace thumbed the mic, hand trembling from pain. "This is Jace Calder. Who are you?" A beat of static. Then an answer rasped through. "Mara, Red Dawn's commander, Earth refugees. We caught your signal from Nova Verge." Jace froze, glancing at Lirien. "Refugees, more survivors." Fire sparked in his chest. Lirien tapped the screen, voice soft but sharp. "Other humans? How'd they make it?" The Red Dawn docked at a hidden outpost, a rusted hulk floating in the void. Jace nudged the stellar drift in, engines whining as they settled. They stepped out, cold air hitting hard, laced with rust and stale grease. A ragged crew emerged, pale skin, patched clothes, but eyes burning with grit. Mara strode up, lean and wiry, short brown hair a mess. Her voice was steady, worn, but tough. "Jace Calder, you're the first we've found in 30 years. Lirien stayed close, silver hair spilling over her face. "More humans?" she asked, violet eyes wide. "How'd you survive?" Mara jerked a thumb at the outpost. "Scavenged old Earth tech, nuclear reactors, scrap radios, kept off Khyvari radar, living in the shadows." She smirked at Jace. "But you rattled them at Nova Verge. We heard it all." Jace brushed his jacket, voice gruff. "I wasn't aiming to be a hero, just staying alive." Mara chuckled, nodding at her crew. "Alive's enough. We've got 30 here, more outposts scattered across the galaxy." An old man shuffled forward, clutching a beat-up radio. "I picked up your signal," he said, voice deep and weathered. "You took down Khyvari with Earth junk. Gave us a kick." Lirien's gaze softened, violet eyes glinting. "You didn't just save me," she murmured to Jace. "You lit a spark. For them." Jace sucked in the stale air, staring at the crew. His chest felt lighter, despite the pain. "A spark? I just want answers. But if you need me, I'm in." Mara raised a hand. "All business. We're linking the outposts, using old radios. Like yours. Khyvari won't see it coming." Jace smirked, resting a hand on Lirien's shoulder. "Count me in. But Torin's still out there, we gotta be ready." Lirien nodded, voice firm. "He won't quit. But I chose this road. With you." Mara barked orders to her crew. "Prep the signal. Broadcast to the others. We've got a new ally." Radios whined alive, their hum rippling through the void. Jace peered out the outpost's viewport, stars stretching endless. He muttered to himself, "Not alone anymore, damn good feeling." But the radar pinged sharp. A bigger ship blipped. On screen, no Khyvari mark, no human sigil. It barreled toward the outpost, fast and quiet. Mara spun, eyes wide. Someone's coming, and they ain't friendly. Jace clenched his fists, fire roaring back in his gut. Was Torin closing in? Or had a new threat just found them? The hidden outpost shuddered as radar screamed sharp. Starlight glimmered faint through the viewport, bathing the ragtag human crew in a pale glow. Jace Calder stood in the center, shoulder aching from the bioblade's cut. Rust and grease hung, heavy in the air, tangled with the low whine of old radios. Lirien Khyra stayed close, violet eyes locked on the screens. Mara, Red Dawn's commander, barked orders, voice hard but rushed. Unknown ship, get defenses up. Jace eyed the radar, heart hammering. A massive blip loomed. No Khyvari sigil, no human mark. Its sleek black hull gleamed like nanosteel closing fast. Not Tauren, he muttered, voice rough as gravel. Lirien gripped his arm, nails digging in. Someone else, she said tense. Just as bad. The screens flickered. A scanning wave slammed the outpost, rattling metal walls. A refugee shouted, "They've got us pinned." Jace spun to Mara, brushing his torn jacket. "What if we gotta hit back?" Mara jerked a thumb at a corner. "Old mag cannon, earth scrap, untested." Jace smirked, limping to the rig. "Untested works, I'll make it sing." He dropped to his knees, good hand splicing copper wires, the other numb and shaky. Lirien darted over, flipping switches nearby. "I've got your back," she said, urgent. "Hurry." The mystery ship filled the viewport, triple the stellar. Drift size, marked with a white ring around a red core. A cold voice boomed over comms. "Hand over Jace Calder, or we level this dump." Mara snarled, clutching her radio. "We're not handing over Jack, get lost." Jace gritted his teeth, finishing the cannon circuits. He slammed the trigger. A whine built, then a mag pulse roared out, smashing the ship's hull. It rocked back, but held. "Just slowed him," he growled, voice hard as steel. Radar screeched again. A Khyvari ship blipped in, small, fast, vac sigil blazing. Tauren. A bio-cannon bolt slammed the outpost, cracking the floor. Explosions drowned the crew's yells. Lirien spun, violet eyes wide. "He's teaming up with them?" Jace stood, pain flaring. "Nah. He just wants me dead first." Tauren's face flared on comms, red eyes blazing. "Found you, human," he roared, voice like a busted engine. "Time to burn." His ship fired again. A bolt grazed the Red Dawn, rocking it hard. Mara stumbled, shouting, "Protect the ship. We can't lose her." Jace bolted to the stellar. Drift's controls, firing the engines. "I'll pull him off." He yanked the yoke, ship lurching into the void. The mystery craft and Tauren gave chase, cannons blazing. Lirien strapped in, boosting the nano shield. "We're toast if this keeps up," she warned, voice tight. But the radio crackled. Mara's voice cut through. "Stellar drift, signals out, backup's coming." Jace glanced out, stars stretching endless. Fire roared in his gut. "Hold on, Lirien. We've got friends now." The mystery ship fired again, a wave rocking the stellar drift. But 3 new blips flared on radar, refugee ships, red sun sigils glowing. They swooped in, mag cannons spitting fire at Tauren and the stranger. The Khyvari ship spun wild, sensors fried. Tauren's voice howled over comms. "I'll be back, human." The black ship peeled off, vanishing into the dark. Jace slumped in, his seat panting. Lirien grabbed his hand, violet eyes shining. "We won," she whispered, "because of you." Jace stared out, watching the refugee fleet gather. "Nah," he said, voice steady. "Because of us." But a faint blip pulsed. On radar, small, weak, marked with that white-ringed red core. The dark wasn't done with them yet.